Hello, I'm Cheryl Meyer, and I'm otherwise known as Cheryl M. Health Muse. And what my goal is to inspire you to lead a healthier life. So when I proposed my podcast, I proposed that we present it in two different segments. The first one is It Feels Good to Feel Good, Future Proof Your Health, where I get to share everything I have learned to return my health back to relative wellness and to live a pain-free life in spite of the fact that I have autoimmune disease. But the second part of my podcast is this episode, and that's Tell Me Your Story, the Health Muse is in. My concept with this is it's all fine and well that you hear me tell my story, but I get a lot of, it's all fine and well that it worked for you, but it's not going to work for me. And I wanted you to hear that there are lots of people out there that have made changes in their lifestyle that have supported their health and brought them back to relative wellness. We all have a couple things in common. We all owned our own health. Whatever the doctor was suggesting we did was going on a parallel path to us making these lifestyle changes where we did things that cleaned up our toxic load. We all pay attention to our body. You'll hear jazz in the background because I want you to listen to the rhythm of your health, and I want you to pay attention to what your body is telling you. My body had been trying to tell me that I was going to topple over into toxic load for some time. I just wasn't listening. So if you clean up your lifestyle and if you listen to your body, you have a very good chance not of being deprived in any way, but returning to feeling darn good. And that's what these podcasts are really all about. So thank you for joining me. This is going to be a Tell Me Your Story, the Health Muse is in episode, and I hope you enjoy it. And I hope that we all inspire you to lead a healthier, happier life. Thank you. Hello, welcome to another edition of Tell Me Your Story, the Health Muse is in. I have a wonderful guest to share with you today who's incredibly accomplished and works with women in multiple arenas to help them be their best self. So I'm going to read more of her bio than normal because she has so many accolades in her bio that I want you to know who we're talking to and how exciting it is to have this conversation. Linda Oviedo, I hope I pronounced that right, is a lifelong entrepreneur with expertise in international development, regional development, international trade and commerce, sustainable development, partnership building, and business development. She is focused on economic and social capacity building on regions, particularly the United States and Mexico. She has worked with government, business, education, and community leaders in several industries and sectors. On the education side, just let me give you a little idea in terms of where she went to school. She went to MIT to get a master's in city planning and international development. She has her environmental design and planning PhD from Arizona State, and she has a certificate in public policy and quantitative issues from Carnegie Mellon. So pretty impressive. So on the education side, you can see that she's also, and we have a loud person in the back there. We have a little tiny dog that is so cute. You'll at some point we'll probably see him. She is a National Science Foundation scholar, as well as a Woodrow Wilson Fellow Scholar, winning multiple academic awards. She's a member of Phi Beta Kappa, graduating summa cum laude at Arizona State in political economy. Her master's is in city planning from MIT. She graduated in record time, and she's a PhD in environmental supply and planning, and she did that in a record 2 years. The standard is 7 years, according to the National Science Foundation. And she had an award-winning dissertation in partnership building. Okay, she is a lifelong entrepreneur I know she focuses a lot of her work on making women be the best that they can be. So we're going to have a wonderful connection. She lives in Arizona, which is where I am at the moment. I'm in my second home in Sedona. So it's lovely to meet another Arizonan. She loves to connect with nature here and enjoys the vibrancy of an engaged community, being surrounded by the shops, restaurants, arts, and entertainment where she lives. She's the founder of the premier global network for women entrepreneurs with a social platform designed to empower women entrepreneurs worldwide with business, lifestyle, self-development, education, community, and networking opportunities. She's a member of the board of directors for the World Game Changers, a philanthropic organization planting the seeds of change around the planet. She is currently the president of the Southern United States for Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, which is an organization of over 250,000 people that are businesswomen in 120 countries. She is the host of WE Worldwide podcast, where guests come to share powerful insights about business, lifestyle, and self-empowerment, business and lifestyle. She has been featured in several publications and highlighted for her award-winning academic and professional career. Okay, now I think it's time that we hear her story, since that's what this podcast is all about. So Linda, why don't you tell me your story?
Thank you very much for that introduction. It was long, but I'm proud of the accomplishments, and
As
it's the
you
first
should
time
be.
I actually am able to express that without feeling guilty or that I'm bragging. So thank you very much for that. Thank you for that introduction. I appreciate it. So a little bit about my health journey. So I've suffered from chronic back pain from a while back, mainly when I got pregnant with my son. The weight gain was so astronomical from where I was, the pregnancy weight, that it created some stress. And plus, with all the studying and schoolwork, you're constantly sitting down, punching back, punching forward, and really not realizing that you need to take these breaks to stretch your body and move your body. So the rigor and the pressures created that. But my life was so active that honestly, I didn't feel that pain so intense. The pain was always there in the background, but not as intense because I was moving, the excitement of the move, moving around, just the work, the activity. It was just, it kept me moving, moving, moving. And so there was no time to think about the pain. But then unfortunately in 2009, when actually 2008, when we began to see collapse in our economy, 2009 is when my whole world collapsed and I went into major meltdown. After building my business soon after graduation, 3 long, painstaking years to build it up. It's like putting each little grain of sand in your hand. And all of a sudden, that was gone. While many companies reacted differently to the economic meltdown that we had back in 2008, the first things to go, we realized, were consulting companies and consultants. So I knew that by 2009, the contracts that had to be renewed would no longer be renewed. So that basically broke my business. And I went,
well.
Yeah. And so that's basically when it began. It sent me down to such a deep, dark rabbit hole where I really saw no way out. That emotional shock, to know that the amazing life that I had built had slipped away. I mean, I had just bought a home for my family. I was about to trade in my little green station wagon that was sold, and I was looking forward to that. But then this happened, and the boy, that really created a lot of problems, a lot of problems. And now I was feeling the physical pain. Now that physical pain was in my body, I couldn't move. Needless to say, I went into the fetal position and I couldn't move. And
Well,
then
your
accompanied
stress
by
level
that,
was overwhelming, so I'm not surprised. You slowed down, that's when you start to feel the pain, but your stress level had to have been off the charts, and that's part of inflammation.
yeah.
So, all right,
Yeah.
you're gonna go.
And so, and of course, prior to that, not working on the diet, not really thinking about what I'm eating or if I'm taking time to step and move more in addition to the movement that I already had. I mean, I traveled worldwide. And so those trips were long and required a lot of walking. And when you get to some of these countries, the major mode of transportation is mass transportation. So you walk a lot and you
And
take
finding
public.
healthy food. I also traveled quite a bit internationally. Finding healthy food in some countries is a little tricky. You don't
Yes,
get to
yes,
eat what you normally eat. You get to
right,
eat what
right.
they take you to eat sometimes, your business associates. So
And then you're in, like you said, you're invited to events and you don't have control over the food, and then you're starving and you see these things that you're like, should I take this cocktail weenie or should I just
yeah.
wait? And if I wait, is there anything open and what do I eat? And so you push that out of your mind in order to survive and do your work effectively. So you kind of put your health unconsciously or consciously unconsciously in the back burner.
Mhm.
So that's where it all began.
Yep, understand it completely. Very similar to my story, although totally different fields. I was traveling the world to design jewelry for big box jewelers here in the United States. I went to Asia 10 times one year. So it was really hard on my body. And then I'd get home and I'd get up at 2 o'clock in the morning because I lived in LA to travel to the East Coast to see a customer, sometimes returning in the same day. It was really hard on I did everything but take care of me. And so it caught up.
Yeah, no,
We
I
have to,
understand.
we have to practice self-care. It's really not
We
an option.
no. I mean, and I did notice, with the weight starting to creep up. And so
I was
occasionally
eating
the
as fast
hotel,
at night as I
yeah,
was working during the day.
yeah. And so, occasionally the hotels would have a gym. And if I had time, I would run up and do treadmill. I mean, that was my thing. The treadmill was a quick and easy way to really get more purpose, more targeted movement, I would say. But that wasn't always the case. Or sometimes you didn't have room to pack your sports clothes, your tennis shoes and your bulky stuff. And so you do without.
So when did you start to recover?
Well, you know, initially, when I noticed that I had all of these physical problems, um, it was very interesting the way it happened. Um, I didn't know how to respond to that. I was just so distraught, literally in the fetal position. Though I did try to do here and there, I knew that I wasn't putting forward what I needed to put forward, and it was just physically and emotionally exhausting. So what I did is I decided to go the traditional medical on the medical side. Just go to the doctor and put myself in her care. Just sit there and say, I literally just sat there and said, I'm in pain. I'm putting myself in your hands. Boy, wrong thing to say. That started the medical merry-go-round, along with a row of pill bottles in my nightstand.
Yeah.
And it was popping pills and really not getting anywhere, and taking a pill for the side effect of the pill that I was taking, and so we go. And especially the pain medication. I mean, that was devastating. That really paralyzed me from taking any action. I mean, just feeling drowsy all the time, not being able, not being in control, and saying, I'm getting up and, driving here or going there. I couldn't, because the side effect of the medication was really devastating. So what do? No pain, but be sitting there on the couch without any type of activity and only digging a deeper hole. And I mean, I went through the whole thing. I went through physical therapy. I went through injections. I mean, and nothing really seemed to help.
And as such a person who loved to accomplish things, you must have found this emotionally very debilitating, because you couldn't keep going at the same level and speed, and you couldn't keep juggling all the balls. The universe told you had to slow down.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because little did I realize, you're right. You go into an emotional space, a state of mind. And I remember just feeling, the feelings of
Uh-oh.
the fear, just feeling very upset that I couldn't move and I couldn't find my way. It was so dark. It was the most obscure time in my life. And I mean, it wasn't working. And then, they wanted to give me medication to address mental health, the depression and that. And that's when I said, no, no more pills. If I add one more pill, I mean, am I going to have a waking hour to do anything with? And, my son was still young, and I just couldn't see myself completely abandoning the whole thing. And so, just in thinking, I mean, I would lie, I couldn't sleep, secondary effects of the whole situation, no sleep, which compounded things. And then, my immune system weakened, and that created a whole set of other issues along with the weight. And boy, I mean, hormonal crisis all over. So it was.
That does impact your hormones.
Yeah, it was really a tough choice. And then I remember one night lying down, I remember that my niece gave me a book. Like right before the writing, they had written the thing on the wall that said no more renewal contracts. I remember there was a position open for CEO, and it was just, it was like they had designed it for me. But I didn't get it. Somebody else got it. That was friends with friends of friends. And so that really, this was before it really, I went through all of this pain and the story that I shared with you. This was just like maybe a month or two before everything really collapsed. And so she gave me this book, and it was The Secret.
Ah, what a lovely gift.
Right? And so I took it home and I read it. But I was so out, I don't know, my mindset was just not there. I connected with some of it, and it seemed interesting, but somehow lost interest. Then I ran into another book that I had that a friend of mine gave me many years back before even The Secret was shared with me. This was a book on metaphysics. And interestingly, it was a book that uh, talked about the philosophy that my mother had shown me back when I was a teenager. So things began to connect. And then as I was sitting one day reading, just, scrolling, I ran into this little download that said, you know, did you know that spices have healing power? And I said, let me see. And I downloaded it and I began to read. And little did I know it was the medical medium. And so then I liked what I saw. Then I started picking up, more articles and then books. And that's when I really knew, you know what? This really isn't working for me. I'm not getting anywhere. I'm just, I think I've fallen victim to the
And a
medical
conventional
practice.
doctor wouldn't have understood any of this. Let me backtrack for 1 minute. And if I'm not correct in the way I describe this, please feel free to add on. The secret essentially is that what you think is what you create. So
Right.
if you're headed towards a positive future, you manifest that. It starts with what you think. And it's really an amazing book because they give example after example of people who changed the entire course of their life because they changed their thought patterns.
Yes.
So
Yes.
for anybody who's gone through chronic illness like Linda has, or like I have, you have to get out of the dark place that you are with your health and believe that you can heal in order to start to find the puzzle pieces to heal. So that was why I said, what a terrific gift that your niece gave you, because that was wonderful. Medical medium is completely outside the 9 dots. So although I don't agree with everything he says, he certainly is not afraid to have people try things and then see how they feel after doing them. And he sees things from his own perspective, and he believes that he literally downloads them from the universe. So he was another great example for you that all things were possible.
Yeah.
So those were both really important steps to you going back to your, and I have come to the conclusion that health is about balance. If we get out of balance physically, we get chronic illness. And that can be from food, it can be from lack of sleep, it can be from too much stress, it can be from all of it together. It can be from not getting out into nature. There are many pillars to health, but if we're not in balance, we get sick. And I've come to the conclusion that mental health is the same thing. When our bodies are out of balance, we get depressed because it's all connected. And I follow functional medicine, and they believe in looking at the entire body. And there's actually a whole new area that they're developing called psychonutrition, where not only are we what we eat, but we are what our gut bacteria eat. And there's a direct connection through our vagus nerve to our brain that changes and fiddles around with all our hormones that can cause moods to go haywire and can cause depression. So getting our bodies into balance is one of the most important things we can do mentally. But conventional doctors go to medical schools that are run by pharmaceutical companies. I didn't know this when I got sick. I learned it as I started to research. And their number one contact for new information is their pharmaceutical rep. Now, we need them and we need the pills sometimes because they do mitigate symptoms. But for anybody listening to this, I'm sure she's going to explain next how she took control of her own health, which was similar to what I did, because that's when you start to heal your body and you start to come back into balance. Okay.
You do. And the secret definitely is that's when I learned about the law of attraction. That as you clearly explained it, what you put out, you get back. And in my metaphysical book, I had known about this, but somehow she has a way of putting things in such a palatable way that you can understand it without complication. And in metaphysics, I remember reading that your frequency, your mood is your frequency. And that's your vibration. And that's what you attract back. It's like a boomerang.
Right.
So you send a boomerang of negative thoughts and it's going to come back, right? And it's going to hit you right between the eyebrows, without a doubt. And so learning that and understanding that, hey, I do have control. I remember when, and this was one of my lowest points, in trying to find out what's wrong with my body. Why am I, okay, fine, I had a kid and I know that creates weight. And I didn't have him at 20. So if you add some years to that,
It also
your
probably
metabolic,
puts your hormones out of whack, because pregnancy does do that.
right.
So,
And so, you go there and I knew that I was holding on to this weight and I'm like, this is not healthy for me. And I'm getting bigger and I can't move because of my back hurts so much. I just can't. And so what was the solution? Another pill,
yep.
Another shot, another this, another that. Medicine definitely has its place and I love medicine. But you really need to understand that you just can't do one thing. You really need to have not only balance, but integration. You
Right.
need to integrate different sources of healing. It's not a Lululemon pair of pants, one size fits all. And that's it. You have to recognize that our makeup, who are we? We're made of energy. So we're energetic beings as well. And we completely disregard that. We
Right.
go into the 3D mode, which is very materialistic and everything comes from the outside. And if you don't get it, it's just sheer bad luck and you go into that mode. But, going back to the original point, there is an emotional connection.
Of course.
Between physical pain and your feelings. How is it that all of this movement and you're just working from wee hours of the morning until wee hours at night, you're not feeling this. You feel tired, but you're really not feeling the complete pain. It's because you're happy. Your emotional vibration is enough to elevate you and carry you through that physical problem. But when I collapsed, my emotions were just like taking a beating like they've never taken before. And so the newness of that, the uncertainty, the I failed my family type thing, and it just becomes so much. And I noticed that there was a direct connection. Because when I was in my worst mood, that's when the pain was more intense.
Right.
Makes sense. I didn't, it's
all
validation.
connected.
It's all connected. And so I knew that it wasn't only about addressing the physical aspect. I needed to address the mental, the emotional, the spiritual aspect. Your physical, your emotional, your mental, and your spiritual are core energies. That's your life force.
And they all need to be in balance for you to be in balance.
Right. If one is out of alignment, boy, you're simply falling apart. So you really have to make sure that you're taking care of that. And that's how the businesses, the other 3 businesses that I had created prior, developed. But this mindset that I was in, nothing was given. It was, I created 3 companies that worked in conjunction. They could operate separately. They had their own brand identity separately, but yet I designed a corporate identity for all 3 and they all could function together. 3. It was great, but I couldn't get them to move because my physical and my emotional pain were gone. And the only thing I could see what was with my eyes. I knew better subconsciously or unconsciously. But here and now in the present, I didn't know that. I was operating under a 3D model, which is very materialistic. You just read the list of accomplishments, and that's very 3D. So I was very accomplished in the 3D world. But I was about to embark in what we call that 4D world, which is that awareness. That awareness that there's something beyond yourself, and that you do have control.
Right.
Now you just have to get it. And so those books began to create that awareness. And I remember my friends all being very 3D, and their spirituality was based on religion, different denominations, but it was a religious spirituality. And I wasn't looking for that.
No.
I needed freedom. I mean, that's just me. That's my personality. Don't confine me. don't limit me, because I'll go crazy.
We all find our own path. I was brought up very Presbyterian, but my spiritual life has nothing to do with my religion, although certainly my ethics and some of the things that I learned by growing up in the church with parents who had me grow up in the church, they're all the foundation of my own direct connection with the universe or God or my higher self or whatever anybody out there wants to call it. I do call it God. But we each find our own path, but we need to have the connection because it's important to our own well-being.
When you talk about that, I remember creating my version, which I call Gao, and that was God, the angels, and the universe.
Yep.
After reading that and after knowing what I knew at an early age, my mom exposed me to metaphysics and alternative healing methods. I mean, she practiced them, and I couldn't make that connection. I mean, how distraught was I to give myself to modern medicine completely without blending or without thinking of incorporating. So, when I transitioned, I didn't transition just cold turkey. Because when you're taking medication, you really have to be mindful to really begin to taper down. And everybody was saying, that it could create addiction, and this is when the opioid situation was on. But I refused to create an addiction for myself. And although they were prescribing, I mean, get a load of this, 3 pills a day, I'm just like, no, I'm just 1 a day, and that's it. Because I didn't want to feel out of it all the time. And I wasn't about to go and abuse anything. That was the last thing that I needed, right? Add more to the package.
You monitored yourself and didn't follow the full.
Because it's really easy. It's really easy to go down that path, especially if you're experiencing these emotional issues. But I resisted because I knew there had to be something better. And after reading that, then that was confirmation. And then going back to the friendships, even friends started changing. I remember sitting there and I have to try this manifesting thing. I know I've done it before. And I did. And all of a sudden, wonderful new friends started appearing that were very supportive of that journey.
Right, because you started to attract the people that you needed in your life.
Right. So that's when I began to wake up and begin to perk up. I mean, I had hired a coach because I wanted to clear my head. And that didn't go well. That didn't go well because I wasn't ready. I really wasn't ready to go down that path. I really needed time for myself. So as I grew, as I began to surround myself with support, then I began to say, okay, so now I need to make these pieces work together. How do I do that? And it's going to be 5 years in October, I lost my first dog, another dog. And I remember he was my companion. We used to sit every night, and I began to write what I called my magic morning routine. And, I remember out of that, the company surfaced, and then I became America's Green Queen. But I don't want to stick with that label forever. Although the content that I created was great, but I had outgrown that label now, because now I was after 4D. Now I was on a transition to the 5D, to that complete awareness, that complete connection with spirituality, that unity, that I know and I'm firm that there's something beyond me, but it all starts inside me. Sometimes you have to step back to step in.
Oh, absolutely.
So that was my path. That was my path. And I began to develop what I called my magic morning routine. And I stood up at night and did my research. And then I didn't know what I was doing, but it's called channeling. So now I just recently learned this, a year ago. I'm like, I didn't know I could channel. Now I do. So all of these messages were flowing through me, and I was just writing them down and creating a program for myself. And so every morning that I created, every night that I created something in the morning, I would test it out, with my little sidekick. And I remember getting up. One of the first things I did was establish a routine. I was the most anti-routine woman on the planet because I liked variety. But I knew that wasn't the path for me. I needed to get control, and I needed to get it in an organized and predictable manner. And so through my journey, I remember you start slow. I didn't want to put myself through the stress of starting gung-ho, like, your New Year's resolutions. When you go out there after the first New Year and you're in your new gym gear and you're trying to walk 5 miles, you come back home and the next day you can't move and you don't want to go again. I didn't want that. So I deliberately started doing bite-sized things. And each routine that I created, I would practice and practice and then create another one, because it built upon each other.
Right.
Meditation, talk about monkey mind. When I began to try to meditate, my mind was all over the place. Boom. And slowly I read, I educated myself about meditation. I tried different ways until I finally nailed what worked for me.
And that's actually different for everybody.
Yeah. And then, another thing is that I started exercising slowly. I remember, I think we still had CDs still in 2012. I remember playing CDs still, and yoga CDs. And I would really focus on the ones that would help me with my back. I knew I wasn't doing yoga gung-ho to do yoga. I was doing it with a very specific intent and purpose, which was healing my back, stretching my back, stretching my body. That's how I began. Every morning I would do a little. And then I would take maybe a walk. You know how hot it is here in Arizona.
Right.
So, I would go really early in the morning and after my meditation and reading, and go for a small walk and come back. And every day I would add 2 or 3 steps more to that walk until I could walk to the park and go around the park 6 times. But I remember barely getting to the park the first time, like halfway saying, I can't do this, I'm in pain.
What I love about your story is that it happened piece by piece, bit by bit. And when I work with somebody, I explain to them, you don't have to do it all at once, but each thing that you start to put into place is one step closer to health. You
Yeah.
don't have to be overwhelmed. You just need to start somewhere. And I don't even care where you start. I would prefer everyone start with what they eat. So I concentrate on that. But if you're more comfortable getting out every morning and taking a walk, start there. If you're more comfortable working on making sure you're getting 7 or plus hours of sleep at night, start there. If you want to start breathing so that you release the top off of your toxic stress, that's fantastic. Start there. Just start somewhere and then
That's
start to build your foundation and your pyramid.
that's right. And and that's also true with you. You talk about food. I'm seeing all of these wonderful foods, and organic was just really ringing my bell. And I saw my pantry and I'm like, good grief, how much is it going to cost me to turn all of this around? And what have I bought? you know, you begin to take account of what you begin to assess what you've done to yourself, and you're like, oh, good grief, I didn't know. So here is what I did. I started slowly changing my pantry because financially, remember, times were
Right.
tight. So um, I had to do it slowly. And, I saw all these supplements and I said, I'll pass on these supplements for now. And when I can, I will come back and get them. But, that's another chat, the
Right.
supplement thing. But I remember doing my first shopping and getting one or two organic products. And I remember getting the pantry style organic products, like, sugar cane, raw sugar cane organic. So we replaced that and then started cutting the amounts we put into things of the sugar. So that's like a 1-2 step in there. And then, I started looking at what's affordable in produce, because some produce can just really skyrocket. Some produce you can find that there's only $1 to $2 difference between your produce, and
Because it
so that's
depends upon what's in
manageable.
season. Right.
Yeah. So, but when you're seeing, like $5-6, then that really pinches your pocket, right? And then I remember adding things to my pantry that I hadn't added before, that I didn't have before, such as chia seed, hemp seed, turmeric, spices that I already had. I learned to use it, and then I tried to find organic. There was some stuff that I could find organic and some that I didn't. But at least I knew I was already introducing those.
Right.
Until now, fast forward 12 years later, and now I can look into my pantry and I say 90, I would say conservatively 80%, 80 to 90% is organic, because there's still stuff that either you can't find, or you can't buy it.
Well, and things have different amounts of herbicides and pesticides on them. So
Yeah.
if you're at least dealing with the ones that have the heaviest toxins, then you've eliminated a lot of the assault on your body.
That's right. That's right. And so, one of the things that I did to try to do that, especially on the strawberries, I would buy frozen organic strawberries at Costco. And that, more manageable. It wasn't that, although price wise it could be almost the same, but at least the duration, strawberries are so fragile that
Right.
2-3 days you better eat them because they're gone. And so that's how I started gradually changing, and just little by little. And then I started with, okay, now that I have this, now let's talk about the rainbow. And I started experimenting, with food. And then there was the fad of the eating raw. I don't know if you remember when it first came
When
out.
I first got sick, I hired somebody who wanted me only to eat raw. I found that very difficult to do. I eat what I call pagan now. I eat half paleo, half vegan. But the raw, I try to eat half raw and half cooked. And my body's happier with that. And it's easier for me.
Yeah.
But most of what I buy is organic because I feel the difference. My
Yeah.
husband
Yeah.
teases me I'm a smoke alarm for any toxin in a 100-mile radius.
the
My
taste.
body goes nuts. Yeah.
When we used to live in the east side of town. And so there was a farm that we used to go to, and we used to pick our vegetables. They let you pick the vegetables and then take them in and weigh them. You
Right.
could actually taste the difference.
Oh, yeah.
Oh
The
my
closer
goodness.
to being harvested that you eat it, the more loaded it is with flavor and nutrition and what we now know are phytonutrients, which are things the
Right.
plants make to protect themselves.
So, and I found that since then we weren't close to that farm anymore. So we had to really shift. And so what I did is to preserve that, I started buying frozen because they're flash frozen right there as you're
Right.
picking it. So that's as close to freshness as you can. But not all of them. Not all of them. Oh boy. So you can't buy everything fresh sometimes. I try to buy most of my stuff fresh, but I do love the frozen stuff. They keep so well. And they're readily available and easy to make. And I remember back, as I'm talking about my mom when she was into all of this, I remember listening to her talk about macrobiotic diet. And what stuck with me was the use of containers, use glass containers.
Right.
That's when the BPAs started popping up in my radar. And so it's the little things that you do that make a big difference.
Right. But you still do them one at a time. But each
That's
one
right.
you do is, if you sustain it, then that's a huge step forward with your health.
And then the succumbing to peer pressure when you're so vulnerable. I remember, my mom, she's always been very straightforward. She's like, oh, good God, you've never been like this. You're so fat. And I'm like, Mom. And, but even then, I remember trying one time to go on a diet. It was miserable. Miserable. The weighing that, I got one of those apps where you entered your calories and you entered all of your data of the food that you're eating.
Any of that
Oh, geez, that was.
I don't want to count points. I don't want to count calories. I have tried every New York Times bestseller diet. I did not permanently lose weight. I'd lose and then I'd fall off the wagon and I'd gain more. What I have learned to do is to lose weight eating real food. My body's in balance, my body's happy, so it dropped the weight.
And that's the thing, and for me, my mindset, by then, I was healing. I had noticed that I began to heal. I wasn't as depressed. I was more alert. I was doing more things. And then I said, let Mother Nature be my medicine. And I'm talking about not only the food that Mother Nature produces, but the earth, walking and just, they call it earthing. You take your shoes off and you put your feet on the ground. Don't do it in Arizona when it's hot.
Come through your feet, yeah.
But feeling that connection, feeling that and not penalizing yourself for not following through one day. If one day I woke up and I missed part of my magic morning routine, I would not punish myself.
No.
Whether before, if I missed something, I was distraught. Oh my gosh, that perfectionism that you built in. That I want everything just right and I want to fulfill my responsibilities just right. And you go into the people pleasing mode too. So you don't notice these things, but they're running behind those programs that are running in the back. And I remember just saying, you know what? I'm not going to go on a diet. If you think I'm fat, don't look. If you think this, I don't care. I'm going to do well, I'm going to follow the Mediterranean style of eating.
That was one of the best decisions you could have made.
And I just said, I'm going to cook because I love to cook at that point in my life. I mean, cooking was healing for me. It was a creative outlet, and it was a way to heal myself and heal my family. Because what I was eating, they were eating.
Right.
And
by controlling what you were eating made a huge difference.
You know, and I know, for example, that when we changed that, the boys would lose 14, 15 pounds, and I would just lose one. Like, I hate you both. What is going on with me? And, you know, I went back again I went back to the medical industry to get tested. Now I was very specific into what I wanted. Now I got a hold of being assertive and being my own advocate and saying, I'll do this, but I won't do that. And this is what I need. You know, I would do my research and I would tell them, this is what I want. When you talk, I learned not to talk about nutrition to the doctor. So
they don't get any background.
No, and here's what happens.
They get half a day in nutrition in medical school, if that.
That's right. Well, and listen to this. When I was trying to lose the weight that I told, you know, the doctor, I told the pain specialist, because he would say, Linda, you know, it would help if you know, the pain is not caused by your weight, but it's exacerbated by the weight. So it would be helpful. And I said, well, send me somewhere where I can actually get help, medical help, to see what's going on with my body and how do I lose the weight. So my pain specialist sends me to a doctor that specializes in weight management. And so I walk in there, and I had done, by the way, I had done a metabolic panel, because I asked my doctor, you know, before I get there, can we do a metabolic panel? So he's aware of what's going on with me when we walk in there. And he said, sure. So I bring my metabolic panel, and what do I get from the doctors? This young guy. And he says, what's in your cheat drawer? I'm like, what? What is he talking about? What is that? I'm like, what is that? He's like, well, do you have a drawer where you keep chips, chocolates, and cookies? I'm like, that's so insulting. I can't even begin. I said, you know, why don't we start by you looking at my blood work? Well, wait, but I have to ask you, do you have that cheat drawer? I'm like, no. And although my body looks like I live in McDonald's, I really don't eat fast food. So can we cut to the chase? And you know, he kept on. I remember other side questions that at that point I tuned out. I got up and I said, you know what? I'm done with this consultation. And he chased me out, and he was trying to peddle his shakes. You know, here, take this shake. This will help you. And so by then I was educating myself on reading labels.
Good.
And I turned around, I looked at his label, and I said, you're honestly, you're in weight management. This is your product that you designed. And look at the sugar content here. Look at the amount of carbs that you want me to take without knowing what's wrong with me. I said, we're done. And don't call me, because we're done. And that's when I learned that they knew nothing. And then they wanted to send me to a nutritionist. And I called her and I said, well, explain to me. So she was very food pyramid.
Oh, yeah.
Type educated. Don't eat bananas because it'll make you fat. Don't eat strawberries because they, you know, high sugar content. And I'm like, well, what about all the nutrition? You know, by then I was already.
Believe it or not, berries are very low. Berries are very healthy, very low in sugar.
Yeah, and you know, and all sugars are not created equal.
No, true.
And so I began to learn, and I realized that it's about really taking control. You're nobody's responsibility but your own.
Right.
But when you're in
One of my
pain and
big
you're
things is
feeling,
to own your own health. If I could get
right,
everybody to do that, that's the
right.
best place to start from.
I mean, how I was feeling initially, all I wanted to do is like, when you're young and you hurt yourself and you run to your mom for comfort. And so kind of that's what I was expecting in my mind. That's what I was expecting. But no, I was, in my opinion, a dollar sign and nothing else. And everything that was wrong with me, it was either you're getting older and you're fat. So those were the two, ends that they would play. And I said, and when they say, Linda, medicine is not always clear cut. There is a lot of guessing and dosage and things like that. That's when I said, what am I doing with these people? I went to school. I could read. I can research. I can put two to two together. Nobody's going to care more about myself than me.
Right. Agreed.
And so
I want everybody to
that's
pay attention
my
to
life.
this.
Yeah, and I do fall off the wagon and I go back on it. And I don't punish myself for it. I don't, because that's the worst thing you can do. So you just say, okay, why did I fall? Okay, fine. I'll just do better. And I don't try to say, oh, I'll make it up. Or today I'm going to starve myself because I overate yesterday. I don't do that.
I have a conversation every morning just to ask my body, how is it feeling? And if it's not feeling top notch, then I know I sort of go like a computer through what did I do that is making my body not feel optimal, and what am I going to change today to bring it back to balance?
That's right. And that's exactly what you need to do. Listen to your body. Your body is your temple. I mean, it's so connected. I've met throughout my journey. You're never given what you can't handle. And I learned that throughout my journey because, the people that I met now, if I would have met them then, I wouldn't have known how to, I don't want to say the word use, but optimize the benefit that they were providing, with their tools and their conversations and their knowledge. I wouldn't have appreciated the value that they bring now. So everything is incremental. We have a tendency in America that we want the whole pie and we just want to shove it in our face with one bite, right?
Right. It doesn't work that way.
No, you have to be really, I want to say methodic, but you really have to be very aware and conscious of what you're doing and how you're feeling. Like yesterday, with our family situation, the emotional impact immediately translated to a physical impact because my head was exploding. And I'm not a person that gets headaches. I don't suffer from that, fortunately. But yesterday, boy, it was a throbbing one.
But stress impacts everything. Stress impacts every organ and every cell in your body. And I certainly didn't understand that. Friends were starting to tell me stress accumulated. I needed to deal with it. It was making me get more done. So I didn't pay attention to it. But I used all my cortisol up. I was borderline Addison's disease when I got sick. So I had to do something about it, and I had to do it fast. You have to realize that stress control is a major part of your path back to health. And learning how to control your stress along your journey, because I go into stress. Every one of us goes into stressful situations. But I now have a toolkit, what I do when I get there, so that I let that top off so that I never go back to where I was when I got sick.
That's right. But those are your mechanisms that you put in place, and you're very intentional about that. And I think that that's what we have to do. I mean, that's the word that I was looking for, intentional. You have to be really intentional about your health. You
Mhm.
really have to be intentional. Let me grab this baby because babies outside are barking and he goes off and he scares you when he barks.
I know, for
He's a
such a little
teeny
guy.
little
Look how
guy, but
big he is.
he's so teeny.
He's a
Oh
sweetheart.
boy, thank you. But he's something else. And I feed him good. You know, when we got him, he threw up all over me on the ride. And I could feel and smell the dog food that they were giving him. And I'm like,
I actually
never am I
wrote
gonna
a whole section in my second book about pet health. What they put
oh,
into pet food is beyond disgusting.
I started reading and I just cried. I'm like, how can they do this to these beautiful creatures? I mean, come on, they're like people.
They
They
are,
like so
and they
much.
deserve better.
Yeah. And so I cook for him. He doesn't he since we got him, that was the last dog, dog food bag that he ever ate. So I cooked chicken for him. I found out what is healthy for him. And so basically he eats what we eat. I cook chicken for him, vegetables, brown rice or quinoa. I add flaxseed for his vitamins. I mean, I'm all over him. And he's healthy. He's thin, but he's so muscly. He's
Right.
muscular.
Right.
And so, you just take it a day at a time. And it's so important for business women to really take care of themselves. I mean, and that's another thing that I stress in my program. I don't give them the coaching that you would on the types
Well,
of
but
food.
our perspective is different, so that makes sense.
But my intent is not to give them a method. My intent or tell them how. My intent is to make them aware and give them the tools so they, we go through worksheets, we go through the workbook is designed to really figure out where you're at in your health. Medically, I want them to go to the doctor and have their
Oh,
numbers.
it's important.
What,
We need our doctors, but we
yes,
also need to own our own health and listen to our own bodies.
right. And so we write that down and we say, where am I? This is where I'm. Okay, so where are you? So this is where you're at. Well, where do you want to go? Well, I want to go here. Well, what is it going to take to get from A to B?
Right.
And so those are the tools that we make them aware of. What do they need? Do they feel good with Cheryl or do they feel good with medical medium? I mean, that's their choice. I don't make the choice for them. I empower them to make the choice, but a choice that's educated and full of intent and creation. They're creating everything from scratch and they're selecting their top expert on a particular subject. It's not me telling them get this or get that. It's just me giving them a guide. And this program will last you throughout your life.
Right.
And it's customizable. You customize it. So you create what you need. And that's the importance. And I mean, look at me. I'm a perfect example. I couldn't get my business, great ideas. The designs were gorgeous. I mean, I worked with a team of students to help me design this. I mean, it was an empowering journey, but also it allowed me to take control of the whole process, and that's what I wanted to do with them as well. I mean, get
So this is
control.
the new program that you've been designing? Because I know you have written down here. Is this what your EVIP days are or your alignment in 5D?
That's the alignment in 5D. So
Why don't you explain that? Because I want people to go find you and I'll put all the links down below us. Uh-oh. There she is. We got her back.
I lost you here. And part of it is
Okay, you're on mute. There we go.
Let me take a step. We go through the physical, through the emotional, through the spiritual, and through the mental um, layers of
You're on mute again, dear. I don't know how that happened, but. Okay.
So we take them through the whole journey and we look at themselves. We want them what I'd like them to do is really to connect with their authentic selves, meet their authentic selves. Because as we talked before the show, you and I, we're made up of beliefs and values that are not even ours. And they're not serving us, they're hindering us from moving. So we want them to have that connection with building, being intentional about creating supportive beliefs and values. But how do you work that? How do you get to that point? So that's where we help them. We want self-mastery. And self-mastery is all about having control of your beliefs, your values, your purpose, your mission, your vision. Where do you want to go to? And understand who you are. What's your identity? Create the identity that you really want, that you're really meant to live. Not an identity that someone else shared with you through their own point of view, through their own lens. We want you to look at yourself through your own lens. Create yourself. And so when we go through that, we go through all of those aspects, the physical, check, make sure that you're where you want to be health-wise. What do you need? Obviously needs for women are going to be different. If there's a woman that says, hey, I'm a yoga instructor, where her physical needs are going to be very different than mine, that I'm not a yoga instructor. So she needs to keep her body in a certain tip-top shape in a certain way to be able to teach her classes. And so, if you're a woman that travels like I used to, well, now we can help you identify things on the go that you can and cannot eat, or that you should or should not eat. And if you indulge, it's okay. Move on and try to, just pick up where you left off as if nothing had happened. And in the business, what we find is that all of those three are not aligned. Sometimes your body and your mind and your spirit are in one place, and your lifestyle is running in a different direction, and your business is taking you in another direction. So your energy is split. No wonder you're exhausted and you're not moving forward. So they have to integrate each of those three core aspects. I call them the Holy Trinity. They have to connect. They have to integrate. Or I don't like the word integration. It's align. They have to be in alignment because they have to flow and feed upon each other. It's like a cycle.
Right.
So, sometimes when I hear women say, I want to make, 6-7 figures, but I want to, and I'm like, well, what do you want to do? Well, I want to travel. I want to do this. I want to do that. I'm like, do you see the disconnect there? In order to make a 6-figure business work, and you're a solopreneur, you're going to have to work to death. So you're not going to have, unless you have capital and have your business model ready. But I guarantee you that I would venture to say 98% of women don't have a business model. They don't. So they operate wherever the wind takes them. And then on top of it all, if they see ads that, buy my program or buy this, probably, and I'm going to venture to say that in my opinion, most of those programs are great. But are they great for your business, and are they great for your business now? And so all of those factors, we take them through and we have them align. And once you align, boy, that flow of energy, you talk about the law of attraction, that creation, it's wonderful. So I can't wait. We take it out to, I take it out to market this fall.
Okay, I was going to say, when do you plan to roll this out?
Yeah.
I'll tell everybody that I am going to include the link to Linda's website so that you can follow her, so that you'll know when she actually does roll her program out, because it's not quite ready yet. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't follow her website and see when she does come out, and then read all about the program that she's putting together, because it's going to be very powerful.
And you know, and thank you. We want to make sure that you're buying what your business needs, and that you're doing what your body needs, what you need as a person, as a woman. You know, how do you want to live? We want to make sure that you have all of those aspects in alignment. You know, I mean, life isn't hard. It really isn't. We make it hard.
We do, I know.
Of course, there's going to be, things that are going to knock you off your axis, of course, such as like what happened, the recession that happened in 2008. I mean, I had no control. I couldn't do anything. I didn't create it. And now with what we're going through, inflation, I mean, we can create this. It's just things, politics, life, things happen that lead you to a certain point that you have no control. But you have to be ready, and
you have to be resilient. There's always a way. It's just, you may not be able to go over the wall, but there's always a way to get around it, or to go through it, or to do something different that you've never done before that still gets you to your goal.
Yeah. And so, that's what we want to accomplish. I want to let women know that they have the ability and the capacity and the responsibility to self-heal, to direct. When I talk about self-heal, it's not, you operate on yourself, or you do, but you advocate, and you're intentional, and you're aware of what you need, that you listen to that body, that you listen to your heart and your emotions, you listen to your mind, and that your mind is healthy, that you don't have any chemical imbalance that you need to address and nip right away. And it's so freeing to talk about mental health now, because a few years back, that was so taboo.
I know. And now we need to get past the stigma of mental health. It's the number one biggest growing health issue in the world. It increased 20% since COVID started, and it's the second cause of death in our young people. I just did 3 podcasts on depression because I wanted to go through. I have actually dealt with people who have committed suicide in my family, so it's very near and dear to me. But I started with, how do you see the signs? How do you find help? Because no matter what, whether it's therapy to heal a trauma or it's a chemical imbalance, you need to find the help. But while you're finding the help, you start to put all the lifestyle things into place that will support your body, that will support your own chemistry, that will improve your mood. And then I go through how your hormones impacted, and things that you can do to bring your hormones back into balance. But I did a lot of research so that people have a huge body of possibilities for them to try. And it could be something as simple as eating a walnut. That cracked me up. A walnut looks like a brain, but it has omega-3 oils in it that are really good to talk from your stomach to your brain and improve your mood. So yeah, some of them are simple, some of them are not simple, but there are all kinds of things that you can start to implement, because if you go to get the chemical imbalance corrected, those pills do not last forever, and they keep increasing the dose. So you need to put the lifestyle pieces into place so that eventually you can wean back off of those and not lose your happy mood.
That's right. And That's what I meant about chemical imbalance. Depression is a chemical imbalance.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, you don't realize what food creates.
Oh, big time.
Oh boy, either you heal or you can really harm yourself with food. The things that I see put in there, and how we prepare them as well, how we store them as well.
My line is, food can make you well, or food can make you sick as hell. It's your choice what you're putting into your body. And if you're buying things that have words on the box that you don't know what they are, you put it back, because that's something synthetic. Then you don't know what it is. Your body doesn't know what it is either.
One thing that I learned is that word natural flavors.
Oh, you know what it usually is?
That's
It's
code for
MSG.
chemicals.
Yeah, and it's usually, MSG is now marketed under 39 different names.
That's
and
right.
It's a neurotoxin.
That's
So,
right.
Yeah.
So see, we need definitely all of this education. And by the way, in alignment, one of the things that I've included in the program is bringing in, guest speakers like yourself, like people that are, for example, yoga instructors when we're talking about the health piece, and
Mhm.
bring them in and talk and educate the group. So it's a pretty complete program. You'll walk out of there able to create your own success. You will not blame your success on anybody else but yourself.
Yeah.
You're in control, and that's one thing that I've noticed with some of the women that I work with, that sense of I need to be in control. And it's understandable. When you have kids, you better be in control, right? You want to be in control, but not everything is in control. You can't control everything, but the only thing that you can control is you. And so it
And
all
it's so much
starts with
more rewarding when it was your choices that brought you to that point of success or happiness or joy or balance. If you own it, then it is yours to enjoy. So it has benefits all the way around.
Yeah. I mean, I look at one of the things that we talked about before the show too is one of the values, for example, that was instilled in me, one of the beliefs, be meek, because nobody likes a smarty pants. And that really has not served me at all. But I've carried it because it's from my mother. It's
It was one of your known truths. You were told it so many times it became a part of your psyche.
It's playing, it's running. That program is still running. I got to tell you that it's still running there. And boy, I'm going to nip it, because that is a value that has not served me well at all.
I love Oscar Wilde's phrase that you might as well be you because everyone else is taken. So whatever that you is, you need to go be that. Whether you're a colorful person or you're a quiet person, whoever you are, you're the only you that's ever going to exist. So be it.
That's right. That's right. So, that's in a nutshell what we're trying to accomplish there as well, to make sure that women have the opportunity to create who they want to be, how they want to live, and what kind of business they want to have or career they want to have, because it's not only limited to business women too. I'm going to open it up to career women. And so, I mean, there are many CEO professionals, many manager level professionals, or just someone that's starting off in their career, or it doesn't matter where you're at, because it doesn't matter where you're at. It matters where you're going and where you want to go. Right. So it's open to everyone. We want to make sure that everyone is able to tap into that experience and be able to create alignment holistically in their life and be able to be in control of their success and to create a life that they want to live.
Okay. Well, I'm going to put all your links that you gave me underneath this so that people know where to go find you. And you also have a strong presence on Facebook. So for anybody who wants to follow Linda while she's finishing up her program, I would recommend, I follow her on Facebook. That's how I got to know her. So I would recommend that you go and you partake in that so that you know when she rolls out her programs and you can enjoy all of the wisdom that she has to share with you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. I really appreciate it. And you know, it's an open invitation to your audience if they want to reach out and find out more. They just want to chat. They just want to join the group, the Facebook group, which is Women's Business and Lifestyle Lounge. It's changing. It's going to be changing its direction, but it's more of a conversational space.
Right.
And you know,
I've enjoyed it.
Thank you. And you know, we will highlight some women, of course, but that's when we have the other platforms integrated into that. But it's still, even though we're going to have those platforms integrated into that, we want them to come in and enjoy and just have a conversation without being, you know, without having somebody trying to promote their product or service. We want you to build networks. We want you to collaborate. And I think, I don't know if you've developed any collaborations as a result of the group.
Not in your group, but I often build collaborations within my health coaching community.
And that's the intent. You know, that's where we're going. That's where I'm going. I want to make sure that the group, the direction the group takes now is that of collaboration, of networking and expansion. And by highlighting certain women, you know, women that participate in the other platforms, it can build those connections and get ideas and reach out and collaborate worldwide. So thank you for having me, Cheryl, and the invitation.
Thank you very much.
To your audience.
I loved having you here, Linda. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you. Loved having you.
Thank you so much.